Hey y'all, good morning. Welcome to Daddy's Right Here Live. I'm your host, as always, Sabir Aline. Had to get my coffee. I haven't had coffee yet. I just jumped up and started running around doing 19 other things, forgetting the time, right? Because time gets away from you real quick, man. Real quick. You know, before you know it, it'll be winter again. And for those of y'all up north, I guess winter seems to have not ended. It intermittently shows up from time to time, especially in those times when you think it shouldn't be there, right? But right about now, it's a little warm up there, so glad y'all got a reprieve. But again, time is something that is so precious. It comes and it goes so quickly, and here we are already in May. In May. Kids will be getting out of school shortly, and then they'll be right back into school again. So time is really precious, right? So when we were talking last week about 7 keys to a healthy relationship, right, a lot of things came up for me. Because what happens is oftentimes couples waste time in trying to move toward intended goals. Really do. A whole lot of time gets wasted. A whole lot of time gets wasted on back and forth conflicts and confrontations, small things, trivial things, but things that are very significant to the growth and development of the relationship. But most importantly, it's just that phase of growth and development and bonding with one another that often takes too long. Takes too long. See, your stuff, my stuff starts, starts showing up, right? And that's where we waste our time at. We waste our time with, who's right, who's wrong, how we're going to do this and how we're going to do that. And the reality of it is that we had these conversations beforehand, we wouldn't be having these conversations right now. We wouldn't be having these conversations right now. So what's happening is this, right? We're going over this list of 7 keys to a healthy relationship, a healthy and happy relationship. See, you can restart your relationship over at any time you want to. This is like a primer, right? You know how sometimes you're in something for a while, it becomes static, it becomes stagnant, it just begins to get real old, it starts losing its luster, right? Not its luster, but its luster, like it doesn't have that glow anymore. You know how when you see people together initially, they have this real glow about them, right? They're happy to be with one another. They're holding hands, they're smiling, they're doing all these things, and then after a while, the smiles go. Sometimes even the holding of hands go. Sometimes one walks ahead of the other. Sometimes one doesn't even want to walk with the other because they're so filled up with displeasure because of the route that things have taken in a relationship. But that's everybody's responsibility. Everybody's responsible to partake in the development and growth of the relationship. And oftentimes that does not happen. So when I decided to go over this list of 7 keys to a healthy and happy relationship, an article on Psychology Today by Stephanie Sarkis, Ph.D., right? I thought this would be perfect because sometimes you have to first kickstart that relationship within yourself. Yeah, you have to do that first. You have to kind of gather the information, internalize the information, and then begin to move forward on your approach, right? So this can work 2 ways for you. This can be you just taking in this information right now, right? And watch last week's video because last week's video covered 1 through 4, and I'm going to do a recap of those in a minute. But go to last week's video, look at that information, and look at those areas, right, where your relationship may very well be deficient, right? And you can kind of go right back over that list from last week, go over this list this week, and then enter into some kind of discussion with your partner. So last week, the first thing that was on that list was mutual respect. And for me, That's a big one. That's probably the biggest one on this list. Because I have found that in so many relationships, there's not mutual respect. And a lot of it comes from when you don't enter into a relationship with good intentions, other stuff starts surfacing. It's going to happen automatically. Right? If you intend to just take from somebody, to get from somebody what it is that you think you should have from them, those are bad intentions. If you enter into a relationship with someone seeking your wants to be taken care of, then that's a whole different discussion to be had. Because, hold on, work with me here. This is, again, the benefits of live. You need somebody who you can work with, because at the end of the day, all of us want something from that person who we enter into a relationship with. All of us do. None of us are beyond that. You see a person, it's something about that person that you desire to have. You haven't identified it as a need. It's a want. It is. It's a want. Because in many cases you don't know like what you need from that person, because you don't know what you can get from that person. So the first thing you go with is, bear with me for a minute, folks. This having a power source issue. That's what happens when you have an old system to work off of. It's about time for me to up the ante on this. My power source somehow or another overheats, and cooling it has become a challenge for me. Bear with me for a minute, y'all. I think we're back on course. There you go. Alright, so as I was saying, so you enter into a relationship with someone based on what you want. You have an identified need in most cases. In most cases, you have an identified need, because that's that subconscious connection. And I'm not going to go into that today, but there's a subconscious connection that deals with what you need. But consciously, you see something in a person that you want, and that's what attracts you to them, right? That's what draws you to them. But when we talk about mutual respect, a lot of times what's happening is the mutuality gets lost, because it's an ongoing fight, it's an ongoing battle to get that person to yield to what it is that you want from them. So you do some compromise, and it's a dance. You go back and forth with one another, you begin to look at things from different lenses, but all in all, you want what you want from that person. Love, that's a word that's thrown around so easily, so readily in a situation, and what that does is it somewhat takes control of the circumstance, because once a person hears "I love you," right, that's usually a yield. Like, okay, he loves me, she loves me, let me back up a bit, right? Because you look for that. That's what you often are seeking to have. That's that want. You want somebody to love you, right? We all want somebody to love us. But it talked about here is that if you don't have this in regards to mutual respect, it's going to be a tough road. This doesn't mean you agree with everything your partner says it does. It does mean that you have admiration for each other, and that steady undercurrent of love and trust throughout your relationship that I talked about. You always have to have that steady undercurrent. And again, if you enter into a relationship with bad intentions, right, just seeking to take from that person, well, it's going to be a downhill trip, throughout. So remember, the undercurrent of love. The second thing on that list was arguing and not fighting. And the article goes on to say that you can argue without fighting. Arguing is non-combative. You and your partner state your points, right, of you without name-calling or raising your voice, right, or without raising your voice. Now, what happens is people get emotional. And when you're talking about the raising of voice, you're not necessarily talking at a whisper. You're not necessarily talking about speaking at this tone. When you get upset, when I get upset, my voice raises, right? And I automatically, when talking in most cases, am projecting my voice anyway. Now you add some emotion behind that, and it sounds like I'm yelling, but I'm not yelling. But what we're talking about here is they're yelling and screaming. Like, if I can't talk and you listen and vice versa, then we have a problem. Then we're going to be yelling. Then we're going to be talking over each other because each of us wants to be heard. So it's important to understand that you're going to argue. You're going to disagree. And so many people find difficulty with just disagreeing. Some people seriously take to heart a disagreement. Like, I'm not going to see everything your way. Does that mean it's the end of the world? Does that mean it's the end of the relationship? For some it is. Yeah. It's been my experience. Listen, it has been my experience that I've been with a person who, or others, more than one, who harbors things. They just harbor things. If you disagree with them, they take it to heart. But that ties into the issues of control, right? That ties into issues of, again, you entered into a relationship based on what you wanted and don't know what you need. So what you're actually getting from that person is what you need, right? Because you need to address that within you. You need to address the bad intentions. You need to address you being resentful. You need to address that. So it resurfaces in a relationship, right? Where the two of you are beginning to learn some things about one another. And that's where the need comes in. And we don't understand that in so many ways. We don't understand it. When stuff comes up, that's your need. That's your need that has to be addressed. But you avoid it. And that's why it's coming up. And that's why the other person is pointing it out. Because that's why you were drawn to that person. That person's purpose for you is to draw forth that need and help you bring resolve to it. If nothing else, help bring it to your attention. But I know many folks, man, who are very, very resentful. Very resentful when you disagree with them. So arguing, not fighting. Agreement on sex, we talked about that. You know, some of us have insatiable appetites. You know, want it every day, not need it. Want it every day. You know, some are okay with 2-3 times a week. Some people are okay with once a week. You know, listen, but you need to have that conversation because you can't be mad. You can't be mad if you didn't have that conversation. I can tell you, I've been in situations. I got an attitude. What? Now I'm used to it. I didn't have the conversation. So now you're in it. Now the conversation comes up. Now the conversation comes up when you feel like, well, we should be like a little more frequent with this. I mean, come on, what's up with that? Why would you not want to? Now it turns into something else. But if you had that conversation before, right, you would kind of find ways to work around it. You know, you would do other things when you get in that space where you have a strong desire to be with your partner, but, you know, your partner's feeling like, listen, you got to accept it. You got to accept it. And going out there running and jumping into somebody else's bed ain't going to help it. You're still going to be faced with the same issue. You're just going to keep going out, keep going out, keep going out, keep going out. But every time you come back, you're still going to be faced with the same situation that your partner just ain't that frequently involved, right? And you're going to have to do something about that. So you still have to fix it. Because now, again, this list, right, is talking about a jump, not a jump start, but a restart of a sort, a means to bringing things back to life within your relationship. So now you have the conversation. Now you have the conversation. And you have to, be very tactful in having this conversation. Because sex is a core part of our relationships. Right? Let's get it right. It's not money, it's sex. Sex is a core piece of that relationship because when stressful situations come upon you, that sex takes all that stuff away, at least for a minute. Right? So you have to have a conversation about sexual relations between the two of you. And you have to mutually respect one another's views. You have to. But you have to compromise. If you start coming to the point where it's either this way or nothing, well then it's nothing. It's nothing. Because at the end of the day, that situation turns into something else. It's your responsibility, and this is where a lot of people, get off track here. It's your responsibility to satisfy your partner. Period. Because if you don't, somebody else will. Yeah, somebody else will. And usually, you know who that somebody else is? Your homeboy, your girlfriend, the one who knows everything about what's going on in your relationship, the one that sees all the signs, the one that knows you best. The one who knows you best. That's the one waiting in the wings. It ain't some stranger. It's always somebody right there that you're sharing your innermost thoughts with. Somebody who knows your behavior and knows that you should be doing better with your partner and knows that you are intentionally, right, doing wrong to your partner. They're waiting. And that's the one who winds up Johnny on the spot, Jane on the spot when it goes down. So you got to have that conversation. You reserving like sex, like for what? What's it on reserve for? What are you saving it for? And if you're saving it for marriage, why don't you just go ahead and get married? I'm confused. So you don't want to engage on a regular basis because this ain't the one. Well, why are you with that person? Really, why are you with that person? If you want to reserve yourself, well, just abstain. It's a lot of confusion. It's a lot of different messages that get sent throughout the course of a relationship, and a lot of them don't even make any sense. And that's where the arguing comes in, right? That turns into a fight ultimately because it doesn't make sense. Either we're in it or we're out of it. Either the intent is for us to have a long-term relationship or the intent is just for us to have a sex ship. Let's clarify, the rules here. Let's clarify the rules here because we don't have that conversation. But in regards to this particular matter, we're talking about bringing back to life some of the things, some of the deficiencies in the relationship. So you have to have the conversation. And if you're afraid to have the conversation about sex with your partner, well then that's going to be even a greater of a difficulty. It really is. Because that means that you don't have that kind of relationship to trust one another. Number 4, which was the last one we covered last week, was the agreement on parenting. We've all come from different walks of life. We've all had different ways of how we were raised, and we all have our approach to parenting. Some of us are very rigid. Some of us are very passive, and then there's some of us who are in between. The authoritarian one is the one who is very rigid. The authoritarian, right? It's the rule. Bottom line. We said lights out at 10. That's it. You're on punishment all week. Well, I was just finishing up the last couple of pages. No, I don't care. 10 o'clock. That means that you should have been reading in. Whoa. Now, if you're opposite of that parent, right? And you're, for instance, the authoritative one. This is the one that there are rules, but kids can give their input on things. But just know that I, as the parent, have the final say. So I'm going to listen to you, right? This is the rational person. This is the person who lets you speak, who listens to your point of view, because they could have missed something. That means that they take ownership for something they may not have seen or may not have heard. Excuse me. Then you have that person who is just like, oh man, let him go, leave him alone, let him live a little. Man, it ain't hurting nobody. That's the difficult situation when you got an authoritative or authoritarian. Because it always comes down to rules. I don't care what life you live in. It's always about rules. And when people don't learn how to stick to basic societal rules, then we have a problem in our society, which we see today. Because people just don't follow rules. Basic rules. So parenting was the last one that we covered last week. So number 5 on this list is equality with money. To the article. Even if one of you makes more money than the other, you both have an equal say about where your money goes. There are no hidden accounts, and you decide together before you make large purchases. Let me stop there for a second. This is important to understand, and this goes back to, if you are in a relationship where I make more money than you, that doesn't matter to me. Because at the end of the day, I want you to be happy. There's that codependent part jumping out, right? I want you to be happy. I'm going to ensure you are happy, but I'm not going above my means. I do not live beyond my means. And you have many people, right? And I've had experience in these relationships. You have many people who live these lives like that they see on television. Like, you want to always shop at Whole Foods. I call it whole check. Right? You always want to shop at Whole Foods. But if you can't afford that lifestyle, don't expect somebody else to afford that lifestyle. If you only can go to certain places and purchase certain things, right, then you're asking that person to ascribe to that lifestyle. And when they can't ascribe to that lifestyle, then you take your own money and you make those kind of purchases, but then you're cutting into the budget that's necessary for our home. But because you want this lifestyle of everything comes from Whole Foods, and it only comes from this, and it has to be this, and it has to be that. Nah, don't expect for me to live that. That's your life. You know, when you have to get, clothing, or you have to get housewares from particular places, right? Places that have expensive items just to say that you have this vintage so-and-so. It's okay to get, vintage things every now and then. Let's have that discussion. I mean, I like going around to, different antique shops and things of that nature. Somebody introduced me to that. But I like that. I like going, looking at different stuff and like getting different pieces. But when you start saying to yourself that that's what you have to do and that you expect somebody else to do that all the time, no. No. Absolutely not. And a lot of people are doing that. A lot of people are getting cars, they're getting clothes, they're moving and living in certain places that they can't afford. But they want somebody else to put their money out to do it because that person can afford. But because I can afford something doesn't mean that I don't have other responsibilities. We have insurances that have to be paid. We have money that needs to be saved. We have other things that are important. You want to go on vacations. You want to do all these things too. So you don't understand the concept of saving. You don't understand the concept of a rainy day. You don't understand the concept of when the storm comes, because they come. Yeah, they come. You don't understand that concept, right? The other thing it talked about here was the hidden accounts. And I've heard this throughout all of my years about people having these accounts, right, that the spouse don't know about. Why would your spouse not know about an account? How do you think your spouse would feel if they knew you had an account on the side? What are you using that account for? No is no. No, I'm not taking money out the bank to go do this. I mean, I have an account. I have X amount. No, because I have $5,000. I have $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, even $500 in the account. It's just sitting there. Oh, well, why can't we do such and such? You got money right there. Right, that money is there for a reason, and that money continues to grow for a reason. Because I continue to make a contribution to it. For a reason. But you have some people who just spend, and just spend, and just spend. I remember being in a relationship with a person who had a hidden account. Oh yeah. Yeah. Never told me anything about it. Right? Matter of fact, they had made a settlement, right? They had made a settlement of X amount of dollars. And I never knew anything about the money. They told me they got another amount that and they actually had received more. But I never saw the money in our home. They never used that money to help pay bills. They never used that money to help us go on any kind of vacation. They never used that money for anything other than whatever it is that they were using that money for. Whatever they were using. But listen, it's your money. Fine, let's have a discussion about what you're doing with it. But if you're just taking and you're just picking and picking and picking and picking and picking away from it every single day, just stopping here and going here and buying this and buying that. No, well, you taking me down with you. Because then I'm going to really feel some kind of way. Like when I find out that we were in need of something, and just so happened it came into this particular relationship that we were in need, right? And they didn't, well, they said they didn't have any money, because I didn't know about these other funds. They said they didn't have any money. That they can only make a small contribution from their pay at the time. And then I later find out that they actually had, you know, and that's devastating to the relationship. Like, wow, you just lied. You just outright lied. Right? But it happens, man. It happens. So if you're not going to have a discussion about your finances, but you want to know about my finances, and you want to ride on my finances, right? That ain't going to happen. Listen, folks, you need to start asking people questions about their financial management. Right? You need to ask them. Yeah. Back to the article. If you are the one in charge of the bill paying, you pay the bills on time. Period. If you can't pay the bills on time, turn over that job to your partner or hire someone to do it for you. Listen, been in this situation. I've been in this situation. I was writing out checks. Right? Every pay period, I'd write out checks. Here, take this, put it into your account, because they didn't have an account, right? Because of their financial mismanagement, which they wouldn't cop to. There was just a reason that they had given why they didn't have an account at the time, right? Now, listen, I'm not going to pick you apart on it. I'm not going to turn it into Inspector Gadget and start. But anyway, so I was writing them checks. They were taking the checks, putting them into their account. And one day I came home and I got a bill from the cable company, and it said that the account was like months behind. I was floored. What? They were telling me, "Oh no, that's a mistake. I already talked to them." Da, 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 da. I called, like, "Oh, what's going on? Why am I getting this?" Right? Because before you and I were living together, I saw my bills coming every month. My bills got paid every month, right? Now I'm like, okay, now there rose some suspicion because I ain't seen no bills. I'm thinking maybe you were taking care of them. Like, okay, so where are the bills? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it didn't come. So what was happening was they were putting the money into their account, right? And they were doing whatever it is that they wanted to do because it was combined with their monies. But you know how much I gave you. You know when rent was due and all. I'm finding that this cable got cut off a couple times because they had spent the money. I'm like, what are you doing with the money? You don't get high, right? What are you doing with the money? You're right here. You see you right here. What are you doing with the money? Right? They were taking their own money and they were putting their own money away somewhere. Right? That's what they were doing. And they were using my funds to take care of their needs and the needs of the house. And the needs of the house were second. Yeah. So, listen, if you can't manage money, if you're not good with managing money, let your partner take care of that. Let somebody take care of that who is responsible in that area. Right? Because that's something I deal with now as well. I put all my stuff on auto pay. All my stuff is on auto pay. The money should be in the account. I don't spend like that. My car payment is on auto pay. My car insurance. My car insurance is the only thing I don't have on auto pay because I got to watch them. Right? But all my other stuff is on auto pay. Right? So if we're sharing that responsibility and I take it off of auto pay because you pay 1 month, I pay, so we pay opposite months. Right? Stay to that. I don't like getting phone calls about something being late. I don't like getting phone calls about something that's not paid. I don't like those kind of phone calls. I don't like those kind of letters because there's no need for it. It's no need for it because I manage that. So if you can't manage that, you need to let your partner know, listen, sometimes I forget. It's not that I don't want to pay. It's not that I don't have the money. I just forget. Well, okay, I'm going to take care of that. Good? We good on that? Right? Because listen, I don't want the phone calls. I don't want them letters. You want to see an ugly side of me? Right? Let me get a phone call that the bill hasn't been paid. Like, why is the bill not paid? Back to the article. You decide on separate accounts if sharing a joint account is getting too complicated or frustrating. Does that hurt the intimacy of a relationship? No, it actually helps your intimacy. You are no longer fighting about money. It makes sense, folks. And see, this is where it goes back to you enter into a relationship based on what you want. While in that relationship, you begin to discover what you need. And there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, listen, I can use some support here. I can use some support here. No, I'm not real good with that. What's wrong with saying that you're not good with something? Why try to keep doing something that you're not managing correctly and bringing grief to your relationship? What sense does that make? It's an easy fix. No, you can pay the bills. Yeah. I'll give you the money to put into the account. Or we'll put money into a joint account to make sure the bills get paid. And you can make sure that they're paid. That's fine. Right? That's fine. Not a problem at all. Right? If you have a joint account, you need to make sure that we set a spending limit. Right? And if there's some major purchases that need to be made, we have a discussion about that first and foremost. You don't just decide that we need this. No. We need to have a discussion about that. Okay? And a lot of times, that's where the problem comes in. That's my money in it too. Well, I didn't question that. But we agreed that we were going to have a joint account, and that having this joint account meant that we would discuss any purchases over a certain amount. Period. End of story. Right? Okay. Number 6 on that list is common goals and values. Couples with very different interests can have healthy relationships. What counts is that they share common goals and values. Important. Let me stop there for a minute. Common goals and common values as 2 parts. As 2 parts to that. I know I put a 4 fingers right. As 2 parts to that. Right? Common goals and common values. Couples of different religions or non-religion and cultural backgrounds can have healthy relationships. What makes a healthy relationship is sharing core beliefs. You may both share the belief that giving back to your community is important. You may both share the belief that extended family members are welcome to live with you at any time. Values and beliefs differ for everyone. Now, my last marriage, right? We had an interfaith ceremony. Yeah, we had an interfaith ceremony. And my imam was there. The officiating ministers were there. We actually went through counseling. We went through counseling. It was an interfaith counseling. There was a portion of the counseling session that the 2 pastors, which are friends of mine, who were willing to do an interfaith marriage. They actually had a portion in the counseling sessions that involved the imam. But one of the things that we did in the counseling sessions was we talked about the Quran and we talked about the Bible. Right? We talked about them both. So there were questions that were asked that were relevant to our core beliefs. Right? So this way we were able to see the commonality in our values. Because that's important. Because it said here, goals and values. Right? So we were able to do that. We reviewed all those things together. We had dialogue about them. And I even did a video that was shown to our guests that showed the significance of having a foundation and having a relationship between the two of us, which was built on, right, that commonality. Because of course, you know, a lot, y'all Muslim and a Christian, and no, y'all, hey, that ain't, that's not written as such, right, for me. So anywho, right, we had that, and it was really nice, man. It was a nice ceremony. A lot of people have never experienced an interfaith wedding. A lot of people, you know, are interested in someone who is of another faith, but because of things that they don't know. And I can tell you, you know, that there were a lot of things that my wife didn't know, well, before she was my wife, didn't know about Islam. She had a different example before her of Islam when talking to her pastor at the time, who would not marry us because of his difficulty with an interfaith marriage, right? And talking to him, he had a whole different example before him. So most cases, people don't even know. When you say you're Muslim, they have no idea what they don't, the idea that they have is either something that they saw on television or something that somebody else told them. But in 99.9% of the circumstances, people don't even know about Islam. They don't. So it was a lot of things that, you know, we enlightened others on in regards to the books. Values and beliefs differ for everyone. It's important to understand. Even if we practice the same religion, right? Because, you know, Islam is divided into sects as well. So when you start looking at, you know, the Salafi, the Shiite, the Sunni, and so on and so forth, you start looking at practices, you know, that although very similar, they have some differences in them as well, right? There's a different language as well. So when you start, you know, looking at having the same religion and having a different perspective, that too can sometimes become a problem. Right? Really. That too can sometimes become a problem. So you want to start looking at that as well. Like, okay, so what does that mean to us? How does this work for us? How does this understanding of this work for us? If we have this difficulty, how do we apply the values, the principles, you know, of our text to our condition? Because you have to be able to go there. You have to be able to identify where you go first. We know we go to God first, right? Going to God is not the question. How you go to God and what you go to God with is the question, right? Because it's written already what you should do. It's already written there. The question is, what do you want to do about adhering to what's written? Okay? It goes on to say how common goals include intangibles, like raising happy and healthy children. What does that look like? Intangibles, like saving up for a house. You can work together on setting 1 year, 5 year, even 10 and 20-year goals. Working towards something together strengthens your bond. And this is another big one for me, because I can tell you that this was a problem area for me. And this is what happens when you enter into a relationship based on your wants, right? On your wants. See, for me, I was always, and I'm just admitting this, you know, over the last year, I was always a codependent person. I was always a caretaker. I was always stepping in there people pleasing. I was always stepping in there trying to do things so you can feel good, so you can, you know, be happy. Always trying to make everybody happy. Like I'm walking around like some pixie sprinkling dust on people, trying to bring joy and happiness into people's lives who were not seeking such themselves. Right? So I spent years of my life doing that. Years of my life, right? So what I started looking at was that goals that I had set for myself were being interrupted by these types of relationships. Because these relationships had no goals with us together. We were just together. And it was just me, seeking to please them, seeking to satisfy their needs. Or wants. Right? But I know who I am, therefore I was there, in fact, addressing their needs. So there's no relationship that I've been in, that I've come away from, that the person can say that they didn't learn something from me. That their knowledge of self wasn't elevated. They may not have appreciated during the course of the relationship, the things that were drawn forth from them, right? But they did appreciate the fact that they learned this and they learned that, and they did raise their standards. They did raise their standards. Ask any of them. They did raise their standards for what they would accept in a man, right? Because of the bar that I set. These things that are on these lists, these are the kind of this is the kind of stuff that I ride with. And again, I'm not bashing anybody, right? The reality of it is, you are who you are, I am who I am, right? And it's just some things like, come on, enough is enough. I'm not going to be somebody's doormat anymore. I'm not going to be jumping into relationships to save people who are not seeking to save themselves. That's on me. That's not on them. That's why those marriages didn't work. Because of me coming into that relationship, addressing their needs, their wants, pleasing them. And I always came away from it empty-handed. That's on me. That's not on somebody else. And that's my reality. And I have the power, right, to stop that. And I've done that. But I'm saying all this to say that, that you have to set goals together. Even if it's a vacation. Like, we're going to save X amount of dollars and we're going to, go to London this year. We're going to go to Mexico that the following year. We're going to keep setting goals. Well, we're going to get a house. Let's look at getting a house. Let's look at getting a house in this part of this state. Let's do this. Well, let's work on getting a deck out back. You do those things together. You plan together. You set those goals together, right? And all the while, right, when you're setting the goals, you're saving the money. You're looking at the kind of wood. You're looking at the kind of layout. You're looking at the kind of grill that you're going to have out there. You're looking at all those things together. And that the joy that comes along with that planning is so good. Right? Because you're always focused on something. But when you're in a relationship and all you are is together and you're not planning anything, I mean, like long-term stuff, that's the problem. I'm not talking about planning to go to the cabaret next month. No. I'm talking about real planning. Because when you're planning something, you're actually solidifying the foundation of a long-term relationship. When you see that there's no planning between you and that other person, you might as well go ahead and go, because you're going to waste years of your life in that situation just being with that person, and you have no goals. You have no goals. It's not going anywhere. It's going to stay just where it is for the duration. It will never be anything beyond what it is. Look at it yourself. How long have you been in your current relationship? How much have you grown? We tend to look at how long we've been together, as opposed to how productive have we been, right? The quality of that relationship. Just being together don't mean nothing. Nothing. How much work have we done? You have people who live in the same houses who sleep in separate rooms. Oh, they've been together 30 years. Really? And you commend them for that. Come on. But you have to work together on setting goals. Number 7, which is the last one on the list, is fun. Yeah, that's missing from a lot of relationships. Fun seems to be when we go to the club, we get drunk, when we having them, we have family over and friends over and we getting our flow on, we turning it up and stuff like that, and then after that wears off of us, is back to the reality of this stagnant relationship, this relationship that is goalless, right? This relationship that hasn't grown in any capacity at all. And then when you factor children into the equation of a relationship such as that, What does that do for the lives of the children? Right? Look at what their lives have become. Because you're just together. If you make a decision to stay with someone, make it productive. Right? Make it productive. For yourself, if nothing else. If nothing else. But you have to provide children with an environment of growth and development. But if the two of you are just together for the sake of the children, and you are doing nothing for your own personal growth and development, this ain't for the sake of the children. I can tell you that. Because it's not going to be any benefit whatsoever for the children. None. None. It's been my experience that when you know that the relationship you're in is counterproductive to your goals and your values, right? You need to make a decision. It's a tough decision. I've had to make that decision. Tough decision. But at the end of the day, I know that the relationship that I was in at that time was not going to benefit my growth and development as a person. I know that there was never any resolve to the unresolved that existed. And I know that me changing my lifestyle, right, was only going to enhance my thinking, moving towards the betterment of self. And if that person was still in the same condition that they were then, it wasn't going to be no help for me. And it was not going to benefit those around us, especially our children. And again, not bashing anybody, I'm just saying what it is and why it is. And we need to start looking at those kinds of things, because that's your reality. When we look at fun, to the article, sexiness wears thin after a while, and beauty fades. But to be married to a man who makes you laugh every day, now that's a treat. And that was a quote from Joanne Woodward. I don't know how many of you remember Joanne Woodward, right? But I always talk about this, and I have someone close to me who I talk about this, a brother, because he's always seeking these so-called model-like women. You know, these high-maintenance women. You know, these lookers, right? And that's fine. That's fine. You need to realize that it ain't gonna always look like that, right? She ain't gonna always look like that. She gonna get wrinkly. Yeah. She gonna gain a little bit of weight. Yeah. She gonna work to be trying to take weight off and go through that struggle. Yeah. Whatever it is. It's the same way with men. You know. You fit now, you in the gym now, right? There's gonna come a time, right, where you ain't gonna be able to go to the gym like that. It's gonna come a time when you don't want to go to the gym anymore. Right? It's gonna be a time when all of that fades. And what you're left with is the core of what you profess to love. Assumedly. Right? But we're talking about being in the relationship right now, you know, with this person. And you're looking at that person, you're like, you know, you're getting a little wrinkly up under the chin there, up under the neck. What's up with that? Right? You start looking at people differently. And if you're a person who has a preoccupation, a fixation on a person's looks, a person's appearance, then you have lost sight of the person. You've lost sight of the person. But it always goes back to what I continue to say, that when we enter into relationships, the first thing we do is we enter into the relationship for what we want. Along the way, as we're developing and we're finding our way, right, towards that common path, because you got to find your way. It just doesn't happen, right? But you got to talk, communication. You got to do things together, right? And that's where a lot of relationships fail, because, you know, it's not a whole lot of doing things together. It's not a whole lot of talking in the sense of bonding moments, right? Going to the movie is not a bonding moment, right? unless you're having a discussion about the movie afterwards. It's just going to the movie. Your time, your energy is focused on the movie. But when you do things together that allow the two of you to focus on one another, those are bonding moments. Those are moments where we can start finding that commonality and that value system that we didn't see initially, because it's just the surface stuff, right? You just get the representative dialogue. And now you want to get to a point where you want to begin to bond together. And when you start bonding together, that's how you come to know each other. Just because you know something about my past doesn't mean you know me. It means you know something about my past. You don't know how I've internalized it. You don't know how it presents in my life. You don't know when I'm affected by it. You don't know those things because you're not coming to understand and know those things. And once you do, what do you do with it? Do you put it on blast? Yeah, see, there you go. That's your childhood stuff. That's what... And you have people who do that. Listen, I'm telling you. When you have those kinds of interactions in your relationships, it's time to go. You're wasting your time. You're only going to find yourself in this relationship 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line and wanting to get the hell out of it anyway. Everything else around that relationship starts looking more and more attractive. Other people start looking more and more attractive. Relocating starts looking more and more attractive because you're so sick of what you have placed yourself in. You have placed yourself in this relationship. You have the power to get out of it. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, it's going to be painstaking. But yes, you have to do it. You have to do it. Because this is not about the other person. This is about you. This is about your life. This is about what you need to do for your own personal freedom. Listen to what I'm telling you. Right? I have been through all of these things for you already. I've already been the research monkey. I've already been that for you. I've learned through all of these marriages, right, that I entered into situations where I wanted to do for them what I wanted to do for them. And when it wasn't reciprocated, right, because I didn't understand at the time how I was codependent. But because I didn't understand that, when I wasn't getting the love that I felt I needed, even though I was doing these things unconditionally, I love you. I'm going to do these things for you. I'm going to care for you. But at the end of the day, how do you show your appreciation for what one does for you? I mean, really, somewhere along the line, you have to begin to look at, hold up, wait a minute. It's not them, it's me. You want people to have the capacity that they don't have when you enter into something by your own free will, on your own thinking. Because we don't have those conversations. Because we just don't have the conversation. Because we're afraid to have those conversations in many ways. Because we don't want to expose our hand of a sort. We don't want the person to know our vulnerabilities. We don't want people to know, that, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to hold you accountable for that. Right? Everything is a secret. So we're in a lot of secret relationships. We start finding out things, years down the line about our partners. Be like, whoa, you didn't tell me that. But I'm saying all of this to say that, listen, life is about joy, right? It's about love. It's about getting your needs met. And what happens is, you're with somebody who you don't even laugh with. Because that's what the last quote by Joanne Woodward was saying. If you have a man who makes you laugh, that's a great thing. And I don't mean that kind of like giddy, like, little girl laugh. I'm talking about like, he makes you laugh, right? He's funny, right? He's loving, he's caring. He brings all these things to your life, right? Why would you not want that? Think about it. Because at the end of the day, that's what you actually wind up looking for. Because you don't have it. And because that's one of the things that you bring up. We don't talk anymore. What's that record? We used to laugh. We should, damn, I just want my friend back. I forget, Crazy. right? I'm just thinking about those lyrics, and I listen to that song often, and be like, wow, we used to do all these things. We used to be like ride or die, and like, what happened, right? What happened? Because that person was getting their needs met, so they were good. Well, they were getting their wants met. They thought they were needs. The needs that you were addressing, they didn't know, because remember, when you get your needs addressed, most times it's unconscious. You don't know that you need that person. You don't know why you truly connected with that person. But it's something that drew you to them, and the physical appearance, the materialism was part of what drew you, and that was your want. The other part was, see, God had already put those people before you. Yeah. Your growth and development, right, comes through other people. Yeah. Think about that for a minute. Right? But we've gone over the list of the 7 keys to a healthy and happy relationship. So if you're in a relationship, right, I'm just saying to you, take a look at it. Take a look at that relationship for what it is. It's hard to get out of relationships, you know, when you're in them. It really is, especially when you love somebody. And I did a show on that, especially when you love that person, right? But at the end of the day, I'm not going to use the old cliche of you got to love yourself first. But at the end of the day, if you don't see this as being your lifelong future, why the hell are you in it? For real. Why the hell are you in it? What does that say about you if you're in a relationship that just is stagnant? It ain't no growth. It ain't no development. It ain't no fun. It ain't no joy. Fun and joy come on the heels of drinking and drugging. Or when other people are around, or when everything else goes, when the drink goes, when the drugs go, when the family members go, when everything else goes, y'all sitting there looking at each other like, what you want to do? I'm going to bed. Come on. I've already done this for you. I've been married to somebody since I was 24 years old, folks. Right? I'll be 58 in a couple of months. There's a lot of growing that I've done. I'm not ashamed to say that at the age that I am now, that I'm learning more about myself. Doesn't matter. According to Freud, right, young adulthood doesn't end until 39 years old. That's young adulthood. 39 years old. When you look at Freud's stages of human development, right? So that's 39 is when young adulthood ends. It doesn't mean that you have entered into middle adulthood predicated on a number. It just means part of your development. That's where you should be, right? So now, if it ends at 39, I'm in middle. So it's not a bad thing. But we have our experiences for a reason, because there's always preparation for us, for what God has intended for us. I ain't trying to get, holy on you, but I'm just trying to tell you that you do have a purpose in life. But until you understand, how to live life on that purpose, you will continue to, like a fish out of water, kind of flap around and, until you find your way back to that water, right? Until you find your way back to the water. We continue to do that. So that's where I'm at right now. I have flapped back to the water. I'm back out to sea, right? And I'm back on course. Back on course, right? From from where I was, because I got off course. So I'm back on course, doing the things that I need to do, for myself, reading more, internalizing more of my doctrine, religious doctrine, and understanding myself as a human being, without my conditions of this life.